Hey everybody, it's Ron, and I want to tell you a story about business and how that story changed everything. Hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon. It's a line that most English-speaking children learn pretty early. A children's rhyme built around the idea that some things are so impossible they're funny. Cows don't jump, cows definitely don't fly. And yet, on a cold morning in February 1930, a full-grown dairy cow was led up a ramp and onto an airplane. Not for a circus, not for a stunt gone wrong, but for a very specific reason. See, at that point, people didn't trust air travel yet, especially not for food. Flying was still new and loud and shaky and abstract. Speed alone wasn't convincing. Reliability had to be demonstrated. So instead of trying to explain aviation, someone decided to show it. The cow's name was Elm Farm Ollie. She was calm, she was milked mid-flight, and before the plane landed, her milk was sent back down by parachute to waiting reporters. The message was not subtle. If a cow could survive a flight, your cargo could too. But was this just a publicity stunt, or was it something more calculated? How do new industries earn trust before consumers are ready to believe? And on February 18, 1930, did a flying cow quietly sell the future of commercial aviation? From Business Basics, I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business History, the daily podcast where we explain the stories that changed business forever. Every day of the calendar has a story where business reshaped the world. Today, February 18th, that story takes us to 1930, the price of making people believe. In 1930, aviation had a marketing problem. Airplanes existed and they flew regularly. Pilots were trained and everybody saw that routes were starting to expand, but trust lagged behind technology. For most people, flying still felt experimental, something daring individuals tried, not something you built a dependable business around. And that gap mattered commercially. Airlines were trying to move beyond thrill seekers and early adopters. They needed passengers or mail contracts or freight customers and recurring demand of their services. None of that grows if the public sees flight as risky or fragile. Cargo, that posed the biggest challenge at this point. It's important to remember that in 1930, food was really still pretty hard to sell. Milk spoiled quickly. It was fragile, perishable, and deeply familiar. People understood it, which made them skeptical that it belonged in the air. If flying couldn't be trusted with something as ordinary as milk, it couldn't be trusted with anything important. Speed alone wasn't convincing. Flyers, diagrams, and technical explanations didn't help. Aviation promoters needed a way to translate abstraction into confidence. So instead of talking about reliability, they looked for something people already trusted. And they found a cow. Not a symbol, not a mascot, an actual, full-size dairy cow, whose value depended entirely on staying calm, healthy, and productive. If aviation could handle that, it could handle mail or packages or even eventually people. This wasn't about spectacle for its own sake. It was about solving a credibility problem that engineering alone couldn't fix. On February 18, 1930, that logic took flight. Elm Farm Ollie was loaded onto a Ford trimotor aircraft in Missouri as part of a carefully planned promotional effort backed by dairy associations and aviation advocates. This wasn't a daredevil act or a prank. It was a controlled demonstration designed for cameras, reporters, and public consumption. Every detail mattered. The plane was stable and the handlers were calm. The cow was selected specifically for her temperament. This was proof of concept theater, staged to feel both absurd and reassuring at the same time. Mid-flight, Ollie was milked. Before the plane landed, the milk was packaged and parachuted down to waiting reporters. That final step mattered more than the flight itself. It turned a strange journey into a familiar outcome. Milk that looked exactly like milk was supposed to look. The coverage was immediate and it was widespread. Newspapers leaned into the novelty, but the message landed beneath the joke. The cow was fine, the milk was fresh, the flight was uneventful. That was the entire point. Instead of asking the public to imagine reliability, the stunt made reliability visible. It reframed aviation from a risky novelty to stable infrastructure using something ordinary to reduce fear. The spectacle didn't oversell the future, it made the future feel normal. Now, the flight didn't revolutionize aviation overnight, but it solved a very specific problem. It gave people a mental shortcut. After Elm Farm Ollie, air transport wasn't just fast, it was gentle enough, predictable enough, safe enough to trust with everyday goods. That mattered as aviation was shifting from novelty to logistics. Airlines weren't just selling tickets, they were selling confidence. Freight carriers weren't just moving packages, they were asking customers to believe that an invisible system would work every time. And getting customers to believe that didn't come from engineering diagrams, it came from demonstrations that made uncertainty feel manageable. Elm Farm Ollie showed that trust could be manufactured, not by arguing, but by staging proof. It was an early example of something businesses still rely on today. When technology outruns public comfort, marketing doesn't just explain the future, it performs it. Product demos, launch events, live tests, carefully designed spectacles meant to make the unfamiliar feel inevitable. Because on February 18, 1930, a flying cow didn't just make headlines. She helped turn aviation from an impressive idea into a system people were willing to believe in. I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business History, the podcast that finds the turning points behind the headlines. To hear more stories like this, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. And if you're enjoying the stories, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a quick review. It helps more people find the story behind the business. And if you'd like to actually understand business better without the fluff or the buzzwords or the MBA language, start by visiting us at businessdailypodcast.com.